Legislators, come on in too if you'd like. Anybody else want to come in?
And if you want to wait just a minute, we'll all go back in a few. So, reporters, questions?
What's the status of your capital budget request?
It's near final. I have a meeting on right after this event. And it'll take a couple of days to put it together, so it will be probably early next week.
We had a dream map legislation in terms of the Senate today. What's your feeling on that, Governor? Is that a good bill or go to the bottom?
No, I supported the DREAM Act at the federal level when I was in the U.S. Senate. And I supported the state one. I have, since I started campaigning, I have in the first 2 years. And it just makes sense to take young people who were brought here as minors and give them the chance to realize the American dream, to achieve the American dream, and therefore become contributing members of our society. And meeting this morning at Senator Franken on the immigration legislation in Washington, there's reason for at least hope that they will actually agree on something, which in Washington is a real miracle, and that it will include the federal DREAM Act and it will resolve it nationally, which is where it should be settled. But I support the legislation here, and I'm do whatever I can to get it passed.
Governor, the legislature's stadium authority is holding its first meeting in a little bit here. What would you like to see from them? Should they start at least a discussion about alternative funding sources for the stadium?
I think alternatives to funding that are not already established in legislation are premature. There's the backup of a surcharge on the suites, and also another gambling game lottery theme after the Vikings. There's also a reserve fund which has been tapped now. We haven't even started to issue bonds, so I think this rush to judgment on it is very premature, and a lot of it's politically motivated. And in a year from now, we'll have a firm basis to decide whether this is going to be sufficient as a source of funding after it gets going, after we've had public acceptance around the state. But at this point, it's just, I'm glad that there's a legislative commission. We'd like to get them involved. The legislature was involved along with me in crafting this funding proposal. So we all have vested interest in making it work, and I think we will.
Governor, what did you think of the criticism leveled by Commissioner Johnson in the op-ed?
I think he's running for governor. I get more and more of that now. It's started, and it's year and a half away, but there'll be a lot of increasingly politically motivated. Perhaps, but I can do it.
Governor, are you and Commissioner Zell getting closer to coming up with the transportation funding back?
I don't know that we'll have one that will be comprehensive for this session. I'm open to talking with legislators about it. I remain concerned about proposals, for example, to increase the gas tax as a standalone, because I don't think it gets us where we need to go. I don't think people will support something unless they see that by doing so we're going to get a really significant result or improvement in our results. And we haven't made that case to the people of Minnesota yet. So I appreciate those who are taking leadership in the legislature on both public transit and highway and maybe the public transit will have support, but we have to include things that are we're not really ready for in terms of public acceptance to try to get legislative votes for the transit. I mean, it to me is a good legislative strategy, but it's not going to produce the desired outcome.
One more question?
Well, the governor message, Governor, for lawmakers as they now get trying to push on the budget, and particularly for Republicans who say tax increases are not necessary and are going to hurt the economy.
Tell the truth. Not tax increases on everyone. I'm proposing tax increases on the wealthiest 2% of Minnesotans. 98% of Minnesotans would not see a tax increase by my proposal, with the exception of the cigarette tax for those who smoke it. And the solution to that one is very simple: quit smoking. So, it's just the same old, same old. Don't raise any money, autism needs, We have early childhood education, all-day kindergarten, we have higher education funding that's lagged behind. And you think we have all this sufficiency in all of our funding over the past decade, instead of cutting. The state support in real after inflation dollars for higher education, University of Minnesota, MINSCU, and the student aid programs, is the lowest it's been in over 30 years. They don't ever mention that. We're trying to reverse this cycle of disfunding education in Minnesota and doing things like early childhood, and contrary to what some of the Republican senators claim, is been well established for years as being extremely beneficial if they're good programs to young people, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds. All-day kindergarten, there's states which have a per capita income $10,000 or more dollars less than we do for providing state funding for all-day kindergarten. We're lagging behind, and our children are suffering the consequences, and we have a $627 million deficit that we have to deal with, and all they want to do is cut some more. And that's not a responsible fiscal policy. When they advocated for 2 years, and the people in Minnesota said, no, we want a balanced approach. We want to raise taxes on the wealthiest Minnesotans, 2%, that's it, as far as I'm concerned. And we want to invest that money in education and in improved human services. And if they're against that, I don't think they're going to be very successful in their approach.
Governor,
So,
sorry, one more.
I'm sorry, one more question. So, working off of bills, what would it take for this to be considered a successful legislative session for you?
Well, then we make these investments in education first and foremost, that we raise the revenues by focusing on the wealthiest 2%, ask them to pay more of their fair share, invest that money in education and some selected areas of human services, continue to push for the efficiencies that we're already engaged in at the administration level, and a good bonding bill that makes investments in public infrastructure, which is needed for its own sake and also creates jobs.
Governor, one more time on the pull tabs. Republican critics again today are calling for an investigation, and I want to know why you think it's premature to panic. When is it the right time if we have to sell these bonds?
If the legislative commission or anybody else wants to investigate whatever they want to investigate, they can go investigate. What is there to investigate? I mean, they've made there are honest assumptions made. If somebody thinks there was wrongdoing, then they should definitely produce the evidence that would support that. Otherwise, it's slow getting off to the start. Everybody agrees with that. It's, we missed the projections. Everybody agrees with that. We're working to correct it.
They want to investigate whether or not the administration knew and didn't tell the legislature.
Go ahead. I'll tell you what I knew. What I knew was that those were the projections from Department of Revenue and the Gambling Control Board, and I didn't go. I didn't inquire further as to what their sources were. They put their perimeter on those. That's my starting point for any estimate. If you have these now making fiscal notes on every proposal that comes through the process, I don't go back and ask them, how do you derive these numbers? I take the fact that came from MMB, the fact came from the Department of Revenue, the fact that came from the Gambling Control Board. The legislature accepted the same numbers, basically. I mean, we had an agreement. We had a bipartisan agreement, not unanimous, but on the funding mechanism as well as the whole project. And, if Senator Dayton wants to go off and, just shoot his mouth off, then, if they want to investigate, fine. There's nothing to hide. Nothing to hide. The administration has nothing to hide. And they, can talk with legislators about parties about what they do whenever they want to know it. Waste a bunch of taxpayers' dollars to find out what I already just told you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.